Welcome back to the AI Ripple Effect podcast. And today I'm super excited to have royalty on the show with the king of beauty himself, Mr. Steven Edelstein, the Vice President of Growth and Partnerships at MyFBAPrep. Steven, it's an honor to have you on the podcast.
This is wonderful. I'm really excited about the session and certainly digging in things and hopefully sharing a little knowledge through my journey in this very long and sordid business.
Well, I and all of our guests will be very intrigued to hear that. So why don't we start by telling us a bit more about yourself, your background, and then we can dive into a bit more about MyFBAPrep and what you do and who your customers are.
We'll talk about the King of Beauty in a minute because that's a sidebar discussion. It's certainly a nice story to tell. My career started not unlike, I guess, on a lot of people that come out of the Northeast, went into private equity, primarily liquidation deals, leverage buyouts, primarily, interestingly enough, in the health, beauty, wellness, and personal care categories, traveled this country looking at different properties, understanding the financial, the operational, the technical aspects of these businesses, created what I call a dossier, a document that profiles all of the different assets and liabilities of these corporations, and then broke them down to decide on whether this was a viable acquisition or not. In the case it was, we would come in, we would take over the organization in a very respectful way. In some cases, keep it together as one business. Honestly, Jonny, in many cases, break up the assets, sell them up to different respective businesses, and then move on to the next property. Through this journey or through this experience, I started seeing a trend in distressed properties. I started seeing a trend in operational inefficiencies. I started seeing a trend in manufacturing disparities, and also what I saw more than anything was the ability to take a product that had some good brand sustenance, some good brand, a core business that could really do well in the market, just wasn't being paid attention to in the manner that I personally felt needed to be able to take care of. So with that said, my journey then moved into what is now the King of Beauty, curated, built, and sold a number of very prominent skincare and dermatological products, all niche marketing, all focused on a very scientific formulation. But the bottom line is these were properties that just needed a little attention. They needed a little love. They needed a little nurturing. They needed some brand massaging. And more importantly, they needed some support behind the scenes to make sure that it had an opportunity to be successful. With that said, knock on whatever this desk is made of, the properties did well. They sold to companies like Unilever, Nestle Health, and Guthrie Ranker, all successfully exited. These were done over the last, my God, I'm dating myself, 17, 18, 19 years. In between all that, we get to the real core of all this. In between all that, I had to learn about logistics. I had to learn about technology. I had to learn about operations. I had to learn about supply chain. I had to learn about inventory. I needed to learn about forecasting and data and understanding what data represents and how it can make a difference in your business decisions and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and so forth. Consequently, exiting all these skincare companies to running, surprise, logistics companies. And that's what I did. I could throw names out there, but probably not important. What's more important is these were companies that needed direction. These were companies that needed leadership. And more importantly, these were companies that needed to build on their brand and their legacy in the respective areas. And I was very successful doing that. Thank God, because otherwise the alternative would not have been very fun. So in between all that, I ended up working with a number of different tech firms and working in a commercial capacity. And the story behind King of Beauty, very quickly, is I speak in several conferences throughout the year. One happens to be a conference called Cosmoprof, which I won't go into the details, but they put on 5 different programs a year. Long story short, a very dear friend of mine who owned a luxury brand out of the West Coast, who had known me for a number of years, and I had just finished a speaking engagement. And of course, if you've ever been involved in something like this, our audience tends to want to learn more about you. They want to ask questions, all of the above. I'm told in court, as they say, and she looks at me and she says, without the expletive, Steve, you are the King of Beauty. And that's how it all started.
What a great story.
Very, very interesting. So since then, will go to my current state, MyFBAPrep, and I say all the time, do not let the name fool you. We are not 100% Amazon business. Of course, we do a lot of FBA work, fulfillment by Amazon, for those who don't know the acronym, PM, fulfillment by merchant, et cetera, including seller fulfilled prime. But we fall way outside of that. Omni-channel business, back to consumer, retail, wholesale, liquidation, excess inventory, and so forth. We are a comprehensive, I guess you call us a logistics firm with a very distinct, and this is where our relationship can really develop, a very distinct attention to not only technology, but here we go, artificial intelligence.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into that in a minute. But I saw recently that MyFBAPrep was named as one of the fastest growing companies in America by Inc. magazine, I think it was. And you're heading up and charging the growth and partnerships. That's your
Yes,
title.
Sir. Yes, sir.
What have been some of the challenges on that growth journey, and where have been the milestone, the catalyst that's really propelled you forward, would you say?
I think 100% is just maintaining a focus. The one thing that I've observed in my, I guess, short and long journey in business, as a general rule, is no pun intended, stay in your lane. Understand who your market is. Understand who your audience is, whether it be a consumer audience or an end user. Be respectful of the marketing that you put into the market, without being redundant. Be respectful of the needs, the wants, all the things that your potential end user needs, and be truthful about it. Be factual. And I think a big part of our journey, a big part of our growth journey, and a big part of why we have been blessed, I guess you'd say, with these different types of awards is because we've been very calculated about how we grew our business. And I could go on and on and on about other founders and other companies and how they develop their business models. But I say this to anybody in the market: take your time. Patience is a virtue. Understand that nothing is immediate. It takes time to develop your model, your brand, and your personality, but also be respectful of the people that are involved with your business, and understand if you do the best and the most proper due diligence in bringing people into your ecosystem, trust them to do the job as prescribed. That is why we have done well, because we respect the ability, the tenure, and the experience of the people that are handling certain responsibilities within our organization, to make sure that they have the biggest chance, no cliche, the biggest chance to be successful in their own right.
I think that's very sage advice, particularly coming from someone who has that great depth and breadth of experience as well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What's on your agenda, your growth agenda for the next 12 months, Steven?
First of all, content, intelligence, education, words, driving force behind the direction of the company, but most importantly, giving people an opportunity to get ahead. It's hard enough in business as it is. Networking, coexisting with other people that are respective of your business, most importantly, can take advantage unilaterally of what you do in each and every day. Working on, I can talk about the vehicles, blogs, and podcasts like yourself, social media, being exposed, being visual, and most importantly, don't look like everybody else. Be a disruptor. Be a little different. It's okay, because ultimately your personality, your characterization, and how companies and people perceive you, in my opinion, is very important to the longevity of your business. If you create a story behind your business, you stick to it, and you grow that presence, you grow that story, you grow that content, people will understand exactly what you do. There'll be less questions addressed and more action taken.
I couldn't agree more. And I think particularly in the age of that we're in at the moment, where trust is really at a premium, right? And how you
100%.
earn that trust. And I think technology comes into that. So I think that's an interesting segue into particularly AI and the impact generally, but particularly in the logistics business. So let's dive into that. How are you seeing AI and generative AI particularly? I know in our previous discussion, you talked about some exciting things that you're doing, but how are you seeing that being sort of impacting your operations, and what problems are you using it for, and how is that manifesting itself?
General statement, unless you're living under a rock, you're probably touching AI in some way, shape, or form. And AI being obviously artificial intelligence, data attribution, understanding information. And to your question, how are we, and I use this very, very seriously, how are we taking advantage of AI to make our company more proficient? Well, there are several areas. One, our data intelligence is much deeper. It's much more actionable, applied, if you will. So therefore, the intelligent level of understanding, the level of information that we receive from understanding, again, data, again, artificial intelligence, but most importantly, that application and how it is put into our business is absolutely critical. B, getting away from manual processes. Now, there are certain things that we do in our day-to-day human life that require a manual process. Totally understand that. But if we can eliminate some of the tasks that are manual, that will accelerate some of our more important tasks going towards either revenue generation, whether it be task generation, whether it be, again, operational proficiency, whatever success journey looks like, we can use artificial intelligence to our advantage and not our disadvantage. And so within our business, we're applying it in three different areas, a lot of areas, but three specific areas. One, as I mentioned, data attribution. The more data we put into our system, the smarter the system becomes, the more opportunity there is to understand certain tasks, attributes, certain guidelines for which we need to perform, and therefore we become smarter. Hopefully smarter in how we attribute that. How do we accomplish that? B, artificial intelligence is just a much better opportunity to bring systems together. When you look at a tech stack as a general rule, you have different types of components that should integrate, should work together. In our opinion, based on, and I'll just roll it out right now, we're building a product called MyLogistics.ai. And a lot of people say, they scratch their heads, what does that mean? It means that we are taking artificial intelligence, we are using it to the betterment of our business to streamline all of our internal and external processes that, again, based on my previous comment about doing things manually, will eliminate a lot of the manual processes that we otherwise would be very laborious, would take a lot of time, and historically not allow us to gain the direction that we're looking to gain. So that's a platform that's actually going to sit on top of our existing tech, which is going to coalesce, it's going to combine with all of the different data elements within our order management, warehouse management, transportation systems. And hopefully, God willing, will allow us to be a much smarter, much more attractive company.
That sounds super exciting. If I may come in on that one, actually, because I think one of the interesting angles here is the sort of the introduction of new technology with balancing the human touch. And I know that's very much, your business has historically been very relationship driven. How
Correct.
are you seeing or how do you anticipate your customers reacting to that very much, kind of leaning into AI, offering that? I guess it's a service enhancement in many ways. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Purely from a customer care perspective, I think that we as a general rule believe that the amount of intelligence, the amount of data, the depth of the data is going to, again, directionally give the people that work with each and every day, our customers, a more streamlined, a more effective, and need I say, much more accurate attempt to take care of issues that otherwise would take a lot of time to resolve. So that's one area. So we talk about the project management area. On the customer care side, it gives us an opportunity to develop enhanced programs, to take programs and add to them different tasks, different attributes, different angles, different ways of doing things that we otherwise would not be able to understand or quote unquote see, because we are so bogged down in the manual process that the time element is against us. Artificial intelligence, whether you like it or not, will allow you to streamline and will allow you to compress the amount of time that you have to take and put in order to get the kinds of results that you normally would have to take more time in a manual environment.
And I think that's particularly pertinent in your role overseeing a business that's quite complex and large. I mean, I think you manage over 100 facilities and 90 million square feet, for example. So it's quite a complex setup there. And I guess that's where AI can really help. Yes, right.
More than you, Jonny. I mean, it not only from an organizational perspective, it allows us to be much more granular in the understanding of who they are, what they do, why they do it, where they're doing it, how often they're doing it. And I'm talking about warehouse structures. And yes, you make a very good point. We have about 85 million square feet under our management, under MSA, and that is growing, by the way. And I don't say that lightly. It's growing only in a positive way. But most importantly, the opportunity to get closer to these warehouses, get closer to these operators, to understand what makes them get excited to get up in the morning, what gets them excited about doing business with the customers, with the clients, with the brands that we represent, is only going to get better with the use of artificial intelligence, because again, it compresses, it streamlines, it makes things easier to understand, and most importantly, accelerates the what I call cut to the chase process of getting to the heart of what you really want to accomplish.
Fantastic. So that leads me into the next question, which is, again, the impact of AI. And if I can, I'll put that into a scale, if you like. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where
Yes.
1's not at all and 10's extremely total confidence, how confident are you that AI will create a measurable value for your business in the next 12 months and then in 5 years?
Great question. 12 months, I think I'm probably about 60% right now. And I say that respectfully because, as we all know, most of us know, most of them are intimate with it, this technology, these applications change literally every 6 months. So when you think that you figured it out, it changes. So it's almost like chasing your tail to some extent, in a good way, because you're constantly motivated to learn more and more and more and more and more. Now, go back to your question about 5 years down the road. 5 years down the road, you're going to have three things going on. I'm always in threes, by the way, which is very weird. So don't ask me where that came from. One, adoption. The biggest thing with technology, as you well know, technology is the most wonderful thing in the world. But if you don't use it, it's absolutely useless. So therefore, adoption is important. Education is important. So you have to be able to, and by the way, they do work together. They're parallel. Education, adoption. You have to understand it in order to adopt it. You have to adopt it in order to understand it. So therefore, those work together. And the third is economics. No surprise. As it becomes more widely used, as it becomes more dense in the usage in the population, as it becomes more widely discussed in a very positive way, not in a, oh my God, what is this? It's intrusive. It's to me. It's talking to me. It's telling me what to do. You spin that the other way. It's listening to you to be able to give you better results. It's watching you to make sure you're doing the right thing. It's training you to be a smarter person. That you have to spin the negative into a positive and look at it as a growth opportunity for not only your business, but your individual self. And if you can take that and run with it and embrace it and understand that it's not intrusive, that it's not going to be overreaching, and it is going to be an attribute and it's going to help to your day-to-day business, then guess what? It could be the greatest thing you've ever discovered.
I love that,
And
Steven.
that's the way I say. So 5 years down the road, go back to finish the thought real quick, 90%.
90%. Thank you for answering that question and giving us some very valuable advice for all our listeners out there. That's been great. One last question, which I think would be particularly intrigued to hear your views on. So with the benefit of hindsight, if you had a time machine, for example, and you could go back 12 months, what would you do differently?
I would embrace technology in a much more responsible manner. I would be less inclined to use price as a barrier to get involved. Think that responsible technology, and I'm talking about platforms, I'm talking about data warehousing, I'm talking about inventory warehousing, I'm talking about forecasting, I'm talking about demand forecasting, demand management, understanding what you have, how you have it, what you need to do with it is critical. So to answer your question, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months prior, don't be afraid of it. Get involved. Be calculated about your approach, but most importantly, embrace it because it's here to stay, not going anywhere. And you have to understand what your opportunities are, not your liabilities.
Steven, what a great way to end our show today. Thank you so much for what's been an enlightening, an engaging, and insightful conversation. We've covered a lot of ground in a short time, so thank you very much. If the folks out there want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? What's your socials? What's the website for MyFBAPrep?
Sure. Certainly on LinkedIn, as most see, I do a pretty consistent job of posting certain things. I'm pretty active on social media as a general rule. Certainly, www.myfbaprep.com, which is our corporate website. You can learn more about the company, and feel free to reach out to me through my email contact, through LinkedIn. at any time. I'm more than happy to field questions.
Fantastic. I'm sure our listeners will do that. And I'll drop the links into the comments after the show as well. So thank you again, Steven, and thanks to all our listeners and watchers today. And we'll see you on the next edition of the AI Ripple Effect. Thank you, Steven.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Jonny.